around his poetry. Okay, so this is recording now. Can everybody... Oops. I need to do this one. There we go. And the light on. And okay, so turn to your copies of the poem if you've not yet done so.
Is it still the Hollow Man?
Yes, definitely the Hollow Man. All right. Okay. All right, guys. So, we're going to start by writing down just a couple of things about the allusions here at the very, very start, where we've got the title, The Hollow Man, and then Mr. Kurt's He Dead, a penny for the old guy. One of the allusions we didn't mention yesterday is the allusion to Julius Caesar. And so Shakespeare's play Julius Caesar is about the assassination of Julius Caesar by the conspirators. And the conspirators were these men who turned against him, and it was very, how would you describe, you probably do a better job, Julius Caesar, the conspirators who turned against Julius Caesar, who killed him in a surprise attack. It was considered very cowardly, and he considered these men to be his friends. And famous line is when he turned around and sees Brutus, who was his bestie, and said, "You two," or "Et tu, Brute."
So being stabbed in the back is actually a derivative of from that play, that particular cliche, although history would have it that Brutus actually stabbed him in their private parts.
Because it's a history play, so he was his
protege.
Yes, yep. And so in the play, the conspirators are actually referred to as being hollow. And so we've got here, so what we're writing is allusion to Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, Act 4, Scene 2.
Miss, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So you've got an allusion to Julius Caesar where the conspirators who planned this assassination and actually followed it through are a reference to the Hollow Men. And then you've also got the Guy Fawkes reference, which is also about a conspiracy to overthrow an oppressive regime. So what do you make of that, Miss?
Well, what I make of it is because the conspirators in Julius Caesar, ultimately what they did led to terrible things, right? And so it wasn't that they were overthrowing an evil guy who needed to die. Similarly, if you think about with Guy Fawkes, he was attempting to overthrow something, like they were rebelling, against something that wasn't fair, that wasn't right, like it was the persecution of the Catholics. And so I kind of see that there's this connection there with the, I guess there's the idea of overthrowing what you think to be right, but then there's the like that double. It's ambiguous because in Julius Caesar it was a bad thing, but then if you look at what was being done with the gunpowder plot and with Guy Fawkes, it doesn't have that same evil connotation, and yet every year they burn effigies of him as if he was this evil guy who sought to do evil things, when in fact that wasn't the case at all. He was one of a number of men who were part of the plot. He just happened to be the one who got caught. So whether there's something about the cowardice of the others who ran and left him behind to be the one to take the fall. It's kind of a... I mean, definitely the connection there is that idea of conspiracy, that idea of overthrow. Maybe the questioning is in the intentions. So I guess in Julius Caesar, the conspirators had selfish reasons for doing what they did, whereas in Guy Fawkes, the conspirators weren't being selfish. They were trying to get rid of this oppression of the Catholics and overthrow this government that they saw to be marginalising them. All wrapped up in evil, though, because ultimately there's evil on one side or the other. And
so it follows the pattern of Eliot, where he presents an idea and then undercuts it almost immediately afterwards. So once you think you've fixed on a meaning, he undercuts that and says, no, that's not what I meant at all.
That's not what I meant at all. Which is why the answer to that question is a bit of like, I don't know, like there's this and there's this, but it's not like you can see this clear, oh yeah, they were evil and they were evil and they were evil, so there's all our links. It's kind of like, well, what's he actually saying? I do think it's interesting that we have this, historical every year burning of Guy Fawkes as if he was this evil guy. And then I think it's interesting that burning of effigies of the Pope goes along with it, that idea of Catholicism, and yet Catholics are no longer persecuted in that way in England. So it's a funny one, but people have started to use it now to burn effigies of politicians they don't like, or famous people that they don't like. Okay, so we've got that one there. Now, it's worth just putting here that this poem was written in 1925. Now, when the Eliot poetry was on the list for HSC, the suite of poems started with Love Song of Jaffa Prufrock, ended with a poem called Journey of the Magi, just before Journey of the Magi, Hollowmen. And so it's this progression of Eliot in his search for meaning, and the Hollowmen, it's the darkest, and it's where he's like at the lowest point. And then the next poem, Journey of the Magi, is more hopeful, and it's where he comes to he becomes satisfied with an idea of religion that gives him that meaning and that sense of faith. So Hollowmen's just before that. Eliot himself had just gone through a mental breakdown, and so he wasn't in a great place, and so that potentially is a part of the reason as to why this is so very dark. The thing that we're going to write here for our Allusion to Heart of Darkness, Mr. Kurtz He Dead, we are writing Allusion to Heart of Darkness at his death. So at Kurtz's death, he realises the true horror of what he and humanity as he knows it is and does. So it's that realisation of the horror. So we're writing Allusion to Heart of Darkness at Kurtz's death. He realizes the true horror of what he and humanity as he knows it is and does. And of course we're just going to put for Penny for the Old Guy, Allusion to Guy Fawkes Day. And the fact that, now I'm writing Guy Fawkes Day, not the gunpowder plot, okay, so that was the event. Guy Fawkes Day is the celebration each year, the bonfire celebration, because the reference is a penny for the old guy, and that's what children say as they're going to burn the effigies, which is something that became part of the celebration each year. So he is actually referencing that bonfire night, that burning of the effigies, as opposed to only what occurred for it to all start. Okay, let's have a look at this first bit. We are the hollow men, we are the stuffed men, leaning together, headpiece filled with straw. Alas, our dried voices when we whisper together are quiet and meaningless as wind in dry grass or rats' feet over broken glass in our dry cellar. Alright, now, as we've been saying, heaps of different ways we can read this. I'm just giving you my reading of it. So, if you disagree with any of it, that's fantastic. And if you can prove why you disagree, that's an excellent thing you can do. We are the hollow men, we are the stuffed men. So straight away, we've got this juxtaposition here of hollow and stuffed. So we're going to write juxtaposition. We've got here in this imagery this combination of the idea of these effigies that are stuffed with straw, and then the hollowness of the conspirators in Julius Caesar, the hollowness of Kurtz, the hollowness of the modern men. So the annotation is a combination of the effigies burned
effigy, that's the straw Guy Fawkes man that was built and that they burned. So you saw the little picture of the burning, it looked like a scarecrow. That's an effigy. So it's a symbolic device that's used by sort of a political demonstration to burn a particular political figure that they might find offensive.
So like, is something like burn Donald Trump?
Yeah,
Yep.
made a straw man of Donald Trump, perfect analogy.
and they've actually
Straw
been
man.
doing that recently on
my
Guy
God.
Fawkes Night.
Yes. Oh my God, thank you. Yes.
Who was that?
That's Sophie.
Yep.
I think was that you, Soph?
I just said that.
Then no, that clapped your hands.
Oh, that was
and they have started burning the Donald Trump ones on Guy
poor
Fawkes Night.
Johnny.
Yeah. It's a pretty powerful way to protest politically, isn't it? To burn a representation of the person you're protesting against. So we've got combination of the effigies burned on Guy Fawkes Day, the conspirators in Julius Caesar.
Miss, what's Guy Fawkes Day? Sorry.
Oh, Guy Fawkes Day and Night is it's also called Bonfire Night, and it's one day a year in England where they all have this celebration where they have bonfires and make these effigies of Guy Fawkes and now other political people. The kids go around saying penny for the old guy to get money, and then they put the effigies on the bonfires. So that imagery that I showed you at the start.
Is the money for the straw men?
Who's Guy Fawkes?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
so
Guy Fawkes was the guy that they captured who was behind the gunpowder plot. So in 1605, as Miss was saying, there was a group of conspirators who came together and they wanted to overthrow what they saw as an oppressive regime because the English monarchy was rejecting Catholicism as a religion and persecuting Catholics. And so they wanted to blow up, was it Parliament?
yes. So they put a heap of gunpowder underneath Parliament, and Guy Fawkes was the guy who was supposed to light it. And And unfortunately, they later discovered that the gunpowder was actually old and had deteriorated and wouldn't have blown it up at all. So it's all a bit sad. Poor Guy Fawkes. All right, so we've got combination of the effigies burned on Guy Fawkes' Day, the conspirators in Julius Caesar, and Kurtz. More profoundly, they are Eliot's modern man, or I guess modern men I should say, Eliot's now I'm going to stick with man, because he talks about the modern man and what the modern man is. They are Eliot's modern man, an empty, corrupt breed.
Miss, while you're there, where was Eliot when he wrote this? 1925. Was he in England?
Yep.
So just a little bit, while you're writing down a little bit of extra history, he's in England at this time. He's witnessed the devastation of Europe post-World War One. He's witnessed the devastation of England post-World War One. When he's talking about hollow men, he's talking about possibly what Miss was talking about when she gave us a little bit of context about this era, and when she talked about shell shock and people who had come back from war. So there's this awareness that people have actually witnessed the most devastating event in human history, and they have returned from that and have a think about how that might make them feel. They've seen the devastation of everything that they believed in, everything that they held dear. Maybe they're the hollow men that he's
Were you just saying
about.
the shell-shocked men? The hollow men? Yes. That's
Returning veterans, shell-shocked men.
and
Also the world that they're inhabiting is also hollow because it's devastated by war as well. Everything they believed
when
in.
you study Mrs. Dalloway next year, there is a character called Septimus Smith who is a returned soldier with PTSD, or shell shock as they knew it, and he's a very important character in the novel, and you witness the insanity that has occurred for him as a result of the shell shock that he was suffering from and couldn't recover from, and that there was no ability for society to understand, or the mental health professionals, they just didn't know what to do. And so they just would send the men away to be in hospitals, away from the people they loved, away from society where we didn't need to think about them and look at them. But very much we've got this idea that they are hollow now, they are stuffed, that they're whispering, that there's no understanding. And so we're going to add here I'm actually going to put it up the top here because it's a bit separate to this idea. The
listening will help here, guys. It is quite complex and can leave you feeling a little bit alienated because Eliot keeps on eluding any kind of fixed meaning. So listening is actually going to give you some assistance here. Please don't sit and just chat.
And he did that very deliberately, and so it's entirely likely that he himself had all of these. I mean, he had all of these connections. So, and I think that's why his poetry can resonate across so many different contexts, because it can be applicable to so many different settings and people and societies. So if you were to just read the whole poem thinking, oh, it's just about soldiers returning with PTSD, that works. That absolutely works, and that's really valid. And then when you add these other ideas, you can see the layering of meaning that he's giving. So this helps you so much for next year, guys. So keep remembering that this is all building on the knowledge base that you are going to need next year. Your future self will thank your past self for this learning. Mm-hmm. All right, we have got the opening starting with we. Twice. We are. And so that is first person plural pronoun. And I think that collective, like we, allows for us to really see how it can be all these different men, all these different aspects of society.
It also includes us as the reader.
100%. We're brought into it. As soon as there's a collective in a poem, it brings us in, doesn't it? Think about
Sorry, Miss, continue.
Great Gatsby and how the representation of hollow and stuffed works for Great Gatsby, which we'll talk about more soon. Leaning together, headpiece filled with straw. So we've got literally the headpiece filled with straw of the effigy of Guy Fawkes. However, there's also that idea of being full of absurd thoughts and ideas, or thoughts that aren't taken seriously, or that aren't serious, or that are meaningless. So think of all the different ways that could refer to the all these different ideas of who might be the hollow men. So if we just put here for this idea of straw, so there's that literal effigy, what am I doing? Effigy, effigies, sorry, I've mucked that up, EFFIGIES, and then we're going to just put plus heads full of I'm going to put absurd thoughts and meaninglessness. Absurd thoughts, because it's not just alluding to like stupidity or stuff that has no meaning, like it can be, but if you think about how you might connect this with Great Gatsby, for instance, and how absurd thoughts might lead to this kind of imagery. Alright, our dried voices, when we whisper together, are quiet and meaningless. Now, this is a beautiful line. We've got this alliteration of the W. When we whisper together, are quiet and meaningless. So firstly, we've got the alliteration. And of course, in this sense, the alliteration gives us that sound of whispering. Now, the whisper comes from both Heart of Darkness and from Julius Caesar. So, in Julius Caesar, the whispering of the conspirators is something that's quite prominent. So there's that whispering of conspiracy, of evil intent. In Heart of Darkness, the whispering was, there's whispering referred to quite a bit. And as they're travelling down the Congo, and the wilderness is so dense, and as they're kind of going down and they're seeing glimpses of things in the wilderness, and they feel as if the wilderness is whispering to them and whispering things that are I guess like revelations about themselves, and they're considered to be instruments of fate. When Kurtz dies and he cries out the horror, it's actually Kurtz cried in a whisper, the horror. So cried in a whisper, which is an interesting image. So when we are thinking here, we are going to write, okay, so we're going to write conspiracy. And then I'm just going to put in brackets JC, Julius Caesar. We're going to put Heart of Darkness. I'm just going to go HOD for Heart of Darkness. Heart of Darkness, the wilderness whispers and Kurt's the horror was cried in a whisper. But those whispers are quiet and meaningless. So, going back to this modernist concern of the urban decay, so the decay of society and of communication, we can link here. So, society's breakdown of communication. And I mentioned yesterday that there's, this common modernist concern about people not being understood and not knowing another person properly. And we think about Prufrock, and he kind of can't, summon up what he needs to do what he wants and to say what he wants and to get what he wants. And so I guess there's that sense of the meaningless whispering of his intent that never is fulfilled. If everything is quiet and meaningless, we don't communicate. As wind in dry grass or rat's feet over broken glass. And this is a very interesting image. Rat's feet over broken glass. Think about the uniqueness of that particular image. So we've got a simile here, as wind in dry grass. Now, years ago, I did a bit of research around what people felt that this image meant, because it is such a weird one, really. And what I kind of came up with after reading what lots of other people had said. Now, dry grass, if wind is going through it, it doesn't really affect it. So if you've got healthy green grass that's a bit long, you see the wind making movement through the grass. But if the grass is dead and dry, it's stiff and brittle, and the wind doesn't have an impact. So that meaninglessness of the wind in dry grass, and rats' feet are so small that if they are scrabbling over broken glass, their feet actually don't get cut because they're too small. So glass has no impact. And so it's this simile that's being used to emphasize the whispering of the hollow man as having no effect, as it's kind of just emphasizing that image of it being so meaningless, with this very very unusual but quite unique imagery. So we are going to do this, and that pen looks like it's not going to be, this pen's going to be too annoying, so I'm just going to, no it's not. Okay, we're going to write simile. And wind doesn't affect. I think that's right.
Yep.
Dry grass. And rats' feet are too small to be cut by broken glass so too the hollow men's whispering
Miss, I think there's a further kind of illusion when I'm hearing it. I'm also hearing that it's a disturbing simile. The glass and the rats in particular, I find this poem quite horrifying. It's really scary. And by comparing these hollow men to the feet of rats over broken glass is terrifying. If your feet were going over broken glass, you expect it to cut you and hurt you and deliver pain. And yet it's impotent here. So it's saying it's a continued and sustained image of impotence, I think. And what they're whispering is impotent. It's part of their hollowness. But at the same time, rats also have connotations of disease and malaise. So I think we can connect that idea as well. Did the rats come up later, Miss?
in this poem.
Yep.
I don't think
rats?
so. I don't think that they do in this one. But that idea of war rats, and you know that a place that is decrepit and broken down, and that's going to be a place where you have rats, because it was rats that did the bubonic plague.
Yes, it was.
Correct?
The fleas on the rats.
Yeah, fleas on the rats.
So they carry disease. So this is really important about the rats, that as they're the carriers of disease, the connotations, we should note this, connotations of rats are that they are disease carriers, and this then suggests that the hollow men themselves are deliverers of a kind of, it's not just the urban decay, but the spiritual decay that comes in the wake of World War One.
So we're writing disturbing connotations.
Get this down, guys.
Rats
Rats never sit well with me.
No. Rats as diseased. And it's the rats that come in and overtake when humanity is... Yeah.
Yep, disturbing poem.
Disturbing connotations. Rats as diseased.
Symbolic of spiritual decay.
Yeah, that's...
Symbolic of spiritual decay. So, what the stories they're bringing back, the hollow men and their whispers, are the whispers of spiritual decay, I guess.
Yeah. Symbolic of spiritual decay.
And that comes in the
DCAY
wake
there.
of World War One.
Yes. Because they had a big problem with rats in the trenches, didn't they?
They did.
I'm guarantee that people didn't have pet rats at this time in history.
Oh no.
Because they were,
Pretty special little critters.
never welcome. Actually, that's the other thing. Rats are never welcome, are they?
No, not at my house.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I'll stop.
No, don't apologise. Okay, now we have. All right, guys. Thank you. Now, have a look at how the poem is structured. If we just, I'm just going to zoom out and just show you this. Okay, when we look at, okay, we've got the start. We've got this little bit. Then we've got this bit. Have a look at how there's not a consistency for, it's not like we can go, we've got 6 lines and then 5 lines. There's all this breaking up of things. And so this is a really good example of fragmentation. Now, I think you guys all have a definition of fragmentation written down, yes? Maybe on the back. Did we write that on the back? Yep. And so that's a really big thing. You can't write about Eliot's poetry without writing about fragmentation and all the connotations of that. And so this poem in its structure is fragmented, as is Prufrock. Not all of his poems are fragmented in that way. Some are following a more traditional structure, but certainly not this one. Now, so these 2 lines here, it's really powerful, and it's supposed to be, as Miss was just saying, quite disturbing, which is why when Marlon Brando reads it at the end of Apocalypse Now, it's so effective. Shape without form, shade without colour, paralysed force, gesture without motion. So think about how those things, if you have a shape without form, it doesn't work. Like, how can you have a shape without form? How can you have, shade in and of itself is, it's a colour, it's there, but it's shade without colour. Paralysed force. How can a force be paralysed? Gesture without motion. You can't so all of those things they're contradicting each other, and we've got this image here of complete futility. The notes that I've got here is image of a dead corpse has been suggested by some people, and I kind of, when I read that, I thought about the PTSD of the soldiers and the dead corpse imagery that would be something that would be so invasive for those men. We've got these notions of spiritual unfulfillment. And now in Dante's Inferno, Dante's Inferno was referred to at the start of the Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Remember, there's that, actually, do you guys have it in your copy? The stuff that's in, yes, you absolutely do, of course you do. Okay, remember that bit there is from Dante's Inferno, that's the start of Prufrock in Italian there. And so in Dante's Inferno, the shades never made a choice regarding their spiritual state during life. Instead lived solely for themselves. Neither heaven or hell will accept them. Now this is important because there's much about the hollow men that we can regard as being like purgatory. So I mentioned purgatory yesterday, I think, and that is where you don't go to heaven, you don't go to hell, you're stuck in the in-between, and it's supposed to be horrendous. You're just stuck waiting for all eternity. And so in Dante's Inferno, the shades, so these characters called the shades, are those who never made a decision, and they just lived for themselves, and then were in purgatory because heaven said, no, we don't want you, hell said, we don't want you, so they were stuck. So when we have this shade without form, shade without colour, paralysed force, gesture without motion, it's all of these internal contradictions that imply something that wants to move but can't, that complete inability. So that's a bit that we're going to write. Let me show you how we're going to do it. Now, is it aporia, A-P-O-R-I-A, internal contradiction? A-P-O-R-I-A.
Yes.
Aporia, yes. So and that it's internal
Aporia.
Aporia, and that's internal contradiction, isn't it?
Yes,
Is it?
or something that makes no sense.
Something that makes no sense. There are so many literary techniques out there that even teachers, sometimes I go, I'm pretty sure that's what that means, but if I haven't used it for a few years, you second guess yourself. So
We don't go out to dinner with our friends and say, well, that's an aporia.
I don't think we'd have very many friends. Okay, so this is the technique, okay? Now, can I highly recommend that, because it's possibly one you've not seen before, maybe you have, but maybe you've not. In this next study break, just get yourself a definition of that, write it at the back of your book somewhere, just add it to the growing list of techniques that you have got. And we're writing here internal contradiction.
It's a logical paradox and an irresolvable contradiction.
There we go. A logical paradox.
I like the logical paradox.
Yes. So a paradox is something that is true but seemingly opposite. So things like you have to follow to get ahead and things like that, that kind of, it's true but it's not.
Guys, we still have a minute or so. Wait until we tell you to pack up, please.
I just wanted to get, I know it's a bit, guys, I just wanted to get this bit down. Now, because we've been writing a bit, I'm going to draw a line that goes underneath what we wrote about the simile, and we're writing spiritual unfulfillment. Dante's Inferno. The shades. Never made a choice.
Wait, Miss, and does this build off the spiritual decay?
Yes, 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 definitely, yes. Regarding their spiritual state, now think here about The Great Gatsby.
Good pick up, Ollie.
Lived solely for themselves.
Okay, guys, back to our classrooms tomorrow, please, after this last point.
And neither heaven nor hell will accept them. Futility.